from Kenya to Ghana, from Ghana to Nigeria, from Nigeria to Chad, from Chad to Central African Republic, from Central African Republic to Equatorial Guinea, from Equatorial Guinea to Benin, from Benin to Namibia, from Namibia you move to South Africa, from South Africa, Rwanda. One thing keeps reoccurring: the cost of governance. The cost of governance in most of our countries in Africa, including Cameroon, is becoming alarming and a major call for concern. When you look at the nations that I've mentioned, you look at their national debt. Most of these nations have huge national debts that they ought to pay, and they need to pay at the level of the International Monetary Fund, at the level of the African Development Fund or Bank, and at the level of different financial international institutions, not to talk about those that have been borrowed from different nations. When you look at the debt of Cameroon, it is very alarming. When you look at the debt of Nigeria, it is very alarming. The Nigerian government, they are owing huge sums of money, and year in, year out, they keep borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. And in Kenya, thousands of protesters captured the Gen Z generation for some period of time, took the nation hostage by staging nationwide protests in view of a finance bill that was passed in by the nation's parliament, brought in by President William Ruto. The aim of the bill was to increase taxes on some major issues and to enable the country to generate revenue that will be used to pay some of their debt that were actually acquired to run the government, either by past government or past regime. However, Kenyans did not take that lightly. They say such a bill will not and should not be introduced because they should not be made to pay money that had been poorly used and mismanaged under high cost of governance. Several people were killed and Parliament was attacked, and at the end of the day, President William Ruto accepted defeat and decided to withdraw the bill and cancel the bill, and also dissolve his parliament, and says he's going to bring in a parliament that dissolve rather his government, not the parliament. He dissolved the government and sacked most of its ministers, and says he is going to bring ministers that will help him to meet up with the vision of Kenyans. In Cameroon, a similar situation happens within the upper echelon, where a parliamentarian was heard asking the Minister of Finance, Louis Paul Motazi, that the Minister of Finance should look into the tax policy of Cameroon, and that there is that need to increase taxes such that they can enable the government to gather money such that they can be able to meet up with their debt. And the member of parliament, presumably coming from one of the constituency in Mundimba, he said that the Minister of Finance should not be afraid that they are there with the Minister of Finance, and that when you look at Western nations, 40% of their GDP comes from tax collection, and that they should increase taxes. And I wonder if that member of parliament is living the reality of the man who is living in New Bell, the man who is living in Nanga Eboko, the man who is living in Moemu Sala, the man who is living in Bonaberriere, the man who is living in Mamu Kwakwa, Nake Bole Munya, the man who is living in Fundong, the man who is living in Akwaya, the man who is living in Kolofata. If that parliamentarian know that most of these people are barely creeping and crawling, or does that parliamentarian want what happened in Kenya to repeat itself in Cameroon? It cannot be said that the cost, argued that the cost of governance in Cameroon is extremely high. Look at the budget being given to the members of parliament, upper and lower house, their allowances. I will have to read some of them in the course of the program. So that you look at this, look at the different delegates, regional delegates, directors, all the top government and sub-top government officials. Look at their petrol bond, look at their allowances, and look at the state in which we find ourselves with the high cost of governance. We keep borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, billions keep siphoning. How and what needs to be done to reduce the cost of governance in Cameroon? The introduction of Cameroon's upper and lower house was an opportunity for many Cameroonians to see that we are going to reap the dividends of democracy. But ever since these houses were introduced, many Cameroonians are still to reap the dividends of democracy and are asking one simple question: how relevant are these two houses, the Parliament and Senate, after they have been introduced? This is House of Commons with me, Tah Mai Javis. It is a difficult strategy in the United States of America when Donald John Trump, President Trump, that was the 45th president of the United States of America, in his campaign ground at Pennsylvania, had an attempted assassination attempt. He was shot and the bullet missed him and picked his ear, his right ear, and he was immediately fell down and was quickly, of course, protected by the Secret Service. Many condemnations have come in, but we are also asking the question, what then is democracy when people are being attacked by virtue of their belief? Is it not the fact that we ought to go to the ballot to establish our constitutional rights? So we wish President Trump a quick recovery. Fortunately, it was not a major incident, but however, 2 people were killed. The attempted assassin was killed, as well as a bystander or someone attending the rally was killed because a bullet picked another person attending the rally behind President Trump. And so we also want to say that this is a very tragic moment for the world. Here in the studio, we also are joined by our cream of panelists, whom we are going to look at today's topic, which we are looking at the evaluation of Cameroon's parliament and also vis-a-vis the course of governance. In the studio is the co-founder of the New Era Youth for Africa, NEYA. He is also someone that has been fighting tooth and nail that the democratic process of most African states should be fully implemented, and that no African nations should be allowed to run sham election, and that the youth must be given their pride of place with justice prevail. Dewum Emmanuel, Haisima Bube.
Yes, thank you very much, Tah Mai Javis. It's a pleasure being on this studio today. I must commend that democracy is collapsing worldwide, and I see in it an opportunity for Africans to spring up their own kind of democracy that can be copied by the West. Because before the invention of guns in the domain of democracy, Africans were using their traditional tools, to hear themselves in and out. But it's unfortunate today that the people who are supposed to be the lesson givers in democracy are using the very gun to kill their own democracy. It's very sad, but I think Africans have become so much intelligent that they can tap from these events, such developments, and make our own kind of democracy to be copied by the West. Not that, because what has happened in the US of A, don't be surprised that in the days of heat, African politicians use the same method to come out and say no and start giving us a lesson that if it could happen in the US of A, why not in Cameroon? Why not in Kenya? Why not in Gabon? Yes.
Taxes
no, we will come to that. We will come to that. Thank you for having me.
Also in the studio, we are joined by the national president of the Reform Party, who is of the opinion that his party has what it takes to revamp Cameroon's economy, to institute a justice system that is not going to be indifferent from someone's personality. According to him, he says that the justice system in Cameroon is partially painting a picture as though there is a different justice for the poor and different for the rich. And he says that his aim of running as president of this nation is to make sure that our economy is well established and stabilized. Our justice system is follow the principle of equity, where no one is above the law and no one is below the law. And is also firm in terms of restructuring our cities and our towns and villages, and that we must look at a different approach. Above all, with a vision of education, that our education needs to be self-reliant, such that it needs to be able to train people who can be able to withstand and invent and innovate, and not people who who are able just to read and write and describe their eloquency based on the grammar and the French that they can speak. He says that French and good English cannot just alone help Cameroon, but we must move back to a system that works, the system that the Japanese, the Chinese have inculcated, that system that will transform the youth to become people who can be agents of change and not just readers of theories that are already redundant. Senior Barrister Ashu Emmanuel, he is the president, a national president of Reform Party. Mano, Erena.
Good afternoon, good people. Good afternoon to all Reform Party members and sympathizers throughout the world. Good afternoon to all Cameroonians. It's my pleasure to be with the honorable audience of my media prime today.
Thank you very much, Senior Barrister Ashu. I'll begin with you briefly. Toward you, a national president and probably will be running for next year election. My question to you, quick reaction of what happened in the United States of America. One of the presidential runner, Donald John Trump, had an attempted assassination attempt on his life. He was actually shot, the bullet picked part of his ear, and another person standing around him was picked by the bullet. Your reaction to that?
Well, one has to understand what is happening in America, because popular poll shows that Donald J. Trump is ahead. And this is not, I'm very sorry, but it's not to the liking of most Americans who think that Mr. Trump is shifted towards Russia. And for that reason, the nationalistic fiber in them thinks that Trump should not be made president. Unfortunately, what we see seems to be a reaction of those defeatists who think that Trump is like a moving train and it's not easy to hold him, and they want Trump out of the way, away from the ballot box. So that is what we are seeing, because if you go by popular rating, Trump is geared towards taking the presidency. But as I said, to the liking of the American people, that's not very good, because they are nationalistic. They want somebody who will protect their own national interests. They don't want somebody who will carry America towards Russia, especially with the Ukrainian crisis.
But he did not take America towards Russia in his 4 years as president. Why do they have that kind of concept?
He didn't carry America, as you might say, but he has strong economic ties with Russia, very, very strong economic ties with Russia, and the Americans don't like that. They don't like that. You see, America has put in place a policy of isolationism against Russia, boycotts and all sorts of domains. So they don't want any person who would take them towards Russia. That is what we are seeing. Now, on the democratic part, we will see that this is a slap in the eyes of democracy, because the champions, the people we hold as the flag bearers of democracy, are showing us a bitter side of it, because we cannot imagine that a presidential candidate will be attacked on the campaign trail. It's not imaginable. And where in America, no. They should reserve that to African countries. Now let them show us something better.
Dear Emmanuel, a quick reaction of what happened in the US.
Like I said in my intro, it's not very healthy for the democracy of the world, because we know that the father of democracy, Abraham Lincoln, made it very clear, especially in his special book, Abraham Lincoln's letter to his son's teacher. He will have to know. He will need to let them know. And letting them know, so many people have never interpreted that letter the way it was. Some people actually thought he was writing it to a teacher who was teaching his son, but it was a letter to those who were to take over him and what they were to live in the history, in the American history, as far as democracy and governance was concerned. And if it is coming from them, we can only regret, because a lot of people look up to US as the mother of democracy. Even if other school of thought actually believe that America has nothing to offer to other nations as far as democracy is concerned, which of course is their right, I still think a lot of people, a lot of countries in the world and leaders look up to America as an example of democracy. The force of argument and the argument of force are two principles that we learn from the U.S. History. And what happened yesterday is no longer the argument of force, but the force of argument. Yeah, the force of argument. Yes.
No longer the force of argument.
Yes.
Okay, I'll begin with you, senior barrister. Let's come to the context. The course of governance. We are looking at the parliament, evaluating the parliament, the upper and lower house, and that also will take us down to the course of governance in our nation. Years after the institution of these houses, you are a presidential candidate. When you look at this structure, how you evaluate these two houses, are they really necessary?
Thank you, Mr. Tah Mai Javis. Let me take the case of Senegal, where President Macky Sall decided to scrap the Senate and use the money to build a solar energy plant that will give free electricity to citizens. You come now to Cameroon, where you have as a legislative organ, the parliament and the Senate. Now, the constitution says that in case of a ceremony, it is the president of the assembly that represents the legislature. Now, when both houses are meeting in the Congress, it is presided over by the president of the National Assembly. Now, let us look at their powers. Bills are debated in the parliament and then sent to the Senate for an opinion. So before I come now to your question, is it necessary? Is it necessary to have a house that consumes so much money only to give an opinion?
Which is an opinion.
To give an opinion to who? To the parliament. Because the bills, the opinion given out, meted out by Senate, is sent back to parliament before going to the president. You see, so you've just touched the nail on the head. Is it necessary to have this type of house that will take the work of parliament, look at it and give an opinion to the very parliament that voted it before it is sent to the president? So I think that the Senate has demonstrated its uselessness, and it should be scrapped. That money should be assigned to something else. Now, you took just one example of the Senate. Let us remember along a memory line that one of the reasons given by the people who said they were scrapping federalism in this country was that it was too expensive. And when we look at the number of ministers, the number of secretaries of states in both East Cameroon and West Cameroon, and the number of ministers in the federal government, they are not up to half the number of ministers we have today in Cameroon. So how do you say the federal system now was too expensive and then you replace it with something that is thrice more expensive than the system you scrapped? Now, that is for the structure of it. You have today, let us take the African Nations Cup that just passed. Buses were bought to be put at the service of the various teams that were participating. Every day you journalists show us the pictures of those buses that are rotting. That is taxpayers' money. The buses are rotting. Can they not auction these buses? Why do you allow those buses to rot?
And then we share them to universities.
There are so many things you can do with those buses. Now let's go to the mammoth graveyard at the administrative garage, where I have been told that no vehicle is repaired. An administrator is given a vehicle. If it is a plug that is not working and the vehicle is not, the engine is not working, they carry it to administrative garage, it is to be parked there because of that plug. If it is the wheel that got broken, they carry it there and pack it there, it will remain there and get rotten. Now, this is something horrendous, because we are crying that we don't have money. Look at the automobile load of the state. How many SUVs does the Cameroon government buy for ministers, governors, SDOs,
Directors General?
Oh my God. How many? And what is the price of a single one? From 80 million. Just by sweeping away those vehicles, you know how much money you are going to make. Calculate how many deals are in this country. Multiply that by the price of one. Just see how many billions are concerned. That is the cost. That is part of the cost of governance. They tell you that the sous-prefect should be seen to drive a good car. Let us go now to the police and the gendarmerie. Look at what I mean. Since when? In which, look at, in many countries, we see police and gendarmerie using on not non-air conditioned vehicles. In Cameroon, they are all inside air conditioned vehicles. What is the raison d'etre, or the reason for that largesse by the government? What is the reason? The one that even stretched my imagination was when I saw the bee riding inside air conditioned buses, 70-seater air conditioned buses, bee soldiers. Where is that done? Now you see,
they also have produce.
Oh my God. If Reform Party were to come to power, please look here, open your ears. All those your vehicles will be taken away and auctioned. Any person, if you are a civil servant, you are a director, you'll be given a credit, an automobile loan. You buy the car, they buy the car, and you will pay for it. There's no reason why the state should give you a car for your luxury. Why? What's the reason? What's the reason? That is the reason why these people misuse this vehicle, because the vehicles don't belong to them. They don't know how much these vehicles cost. They don't sweat. Even to use the cars, the fuel comes from the state. The story would have been different if somebody were to be asked to take a loan, an automobile loan, and be paying from his salary. He will be very careful with that vehicle. And that is just what we intend to do. So all these people think that embezzling public money is a goal to be attained. Please, your honeymoon is soon going to be over, because we shall not tolerate that nonsense. The cost of ruling the country is not supposed to be high. How can you explain that we have a budget of 6,000 billion? How can you explain? What are they doing with it? And then inside that budget, you have 85% that remains in Yaoundé, and only 15% is supposed to be given to councils. So Yaoundé, yes. Look at that. You see the cost.
What do Yaoundé do with the entire?
My brother, let me just put the additional paper to say that if we are to be president of this country, then that capital will move from Yaoundé to Fumban, because there is no reason why you carry so much money and concentrate around Yaoundé, and you go to the Yaoundé, there are no roads. What are they doing with the money?
We'll be coming back to the senior barrister, president of the National President of Reform Party, and aspirant for 2025. And Emmanuel, yes, these two houses have been instituted. Cameroonians are yet to see the dividend of democracy in these two houses. Are they necessary? Like senior barrister said, the parliament, the Senate is an opinion-oriented body.
3 years ago, on this very platform, I was shouting at the top of my voice that there was no need for the Senate in Cameroon. And today, I am comforted again by the own very act at the Senate that my opinion, of course, which was personal, was the best, and it still stands. Senior Barrister took the example of Senegal, and I want to take the recent example of France, where Emmanuel Macron himself has come out that he's dissolving the parliament, dissolving it to start from scratch. At least, if we can maintain the parliament in Cameroon, we can also dissolve it and start from scratch. Because these are the most are supposed to be the most respectable institutions in every country. If they say Cameroon is still building its democracy, which I see that it is true. If they say Cameroon is still heavily indebted today because it's a young nation in its independence, then the Senate is old enough not to exist in a young independent country still building its democracy like Cameroon. Of course, if the independence of Cameroon is still very young, those who are manning the Senate, who are far much above the age of the independence of that country, simply gives us an idea that the Senate is of no use in Cameroon. And I maintain the Senate in good faith needs to be scraped off. It is somewhere some people had this opinion that when there was a lot of disgruntledness from those who have served Mr. Biya for a very long time, and were already on retirement, and there were fears that they could team up something behind to make him feel uncomfortable, since they thought they were going to roll and leave office together. Finally, they found themselves out of active service when Mr. Biya was still in the office. His advisors made it possible for him to know that, look, let's create something that can harbor these people who are disgruntled, so that they don't cook up something behind that can end up finishing with us. The Senate came into play. And truly, we are living a copy and paste kind of leadership in Cameroon. Because the time that the Senate came into to play, I think that was 2013, it was not of any use, because at that time, the problems of Cameroon were staring at the Yaoundé government at the face. Yet, they prefer to bring in the Senate. And in that Senate, we have seen people who have been there for donkey years, who have been in the government for donkey years, finally went on retirement, were scraped and put in the office, and they saw it as a trophy. An example is the president of the Senate. You cannot tell me that he's of use to this country as of now. With all due respect to the input that he had given to Cameroon before now, he ought to have been resting. Even given his health situation. The question I'm asking is, which parliament in the world opens its session by insulting the citizens of that nation? It is seen in Cameroon. We saw it in the last ended session, where the president of the National Assembly called people lazy boo. That is an insult to the entire nation. Cows, owls, birds. Which means in a serious nation, he would have been called to book. But I have an impression that he owns the National Assembly. Our memories cannot fail us to the level where we have to forget that this same president of the National Assembly ran away from France, from his sick bed, violated all the coronavirus rules to come to Cameroon because he wanted to maintain himself as the president of the National Assembly, and nothing was done. But people were picked up in this very nation because they violated the rules of COVID. I was picked up in Douala because of mouth, face mask. I was almost detained at Bello because of face mask, whereas I had it in my hand. But somebody who incarnates the first institution of the country that makes laws, violated all the rules of the coronavirus, came to Cameroon, found himself at the National Assembly, and was not sent out, which means Cameroonians have been auctioned to the very few who have taken Cameroon hostage. I think, and still in this very just ended session, you heard, you are the one saying, because we have been investigated to get the name of that parliamentarian.
So that should be for Monday.
Who said that trash? That Cameroonians are less taxed than they were supposed to be. And that the Minister of Finance has their backing.
I am afraid.
That he should not be afraid. That he should tax us well, because the money they intend to embezzle is not to that level. Because I am telling you that. I am telling you.
No, I accept.
Where has the money been going to?
It is not say embezzle. It is
my opinion.
Yeah, but
and I take responsibility for it.
Opinion, but
yes.
You were
now telling Cameroonians that you are less taxed is an insult to our faces. And I want to think that such, you saw what happened in Kenya. You saw how parliamentarians were well beaten and trashed in public in Kenya. Why? Because they went and voted a bill that was not even worse than the bills that have been voted in Cameroon. Do they even vote bills in Cameroon? Bills in the National Assembly are dictated.
They were actually protesting against something that we will just laugh over.
Yes, that will even smile and welcome it. And it ended up that parliamentarians joined them on the street. Why? When they succeeded to get the few parliamentarians who actually brought the bill and was stable and valid, they were beaten. I said they were beaten. I am not saying that Cameroonians should rise up and start beating the parliamentarians, but I'm saying that there's another way of beating them. That way is 2025 or 2026. Beat them by voting them out. Our parliament is of no use. With or without the parliament in Cameroon, Cameroon will still be managed. Sometimes I even said Cameroon is the only country in the world that manages itself automatically without a leader. Nobody manages Cameroon.
Where you say no?
God is managing Cameroon.
No, where you say nobody manages Cameroon? Are you saying that we don't have the head of state, we don't have the prime minister?
The head of state has not been managing Cameroonians.
No, he has been managing.
That is why, no. When we are talking to if the head of state was managing Cameroonians, the kind of bills at the National Assembly, the head of state will not promulgate them. I'm telling you.
So the person promulgating those bills.
You saw it in Kenya. Ruto came out. That's an example of a leader. That's an example of a manager. He came out. He condemned his parliamentarians. He has even sacked the entire cabinet. That is how they manage a country.
You are a pedagogue. You know, understand the different system of leadership. Maybe Cameroon has its own different.
No, let's keep pedagogy aside. We are talking about managing a country.
But there are different ways of managing. Now, you are a pedagogue. You study administration.
Yes, I know. I am saying that one of the key rules of administration, if you wonder we should talk pedagogically, we have 3 elements that must prevail. There must be information. Are you getting the information? Can you tell me the last time you had information from the presidency of the republic? That one. Wait. Oh.
There's a TV station.
2, there must be accountability that has to be rendered to the people, and that is where I keep holding the head of state. Accountability has not been rendered to Cameroonians, and that is why that woman in Tukumbere will not know exactly what transpired in the National Assembly. We are getting what transpired in the National Assembly as a rumor, whereas in other countries, National Assembly sessions are televised.
Yes.
The citizens are seeing it live on screen. They have the see and they know what transpired. In Cameroon, we get it as if it was a rumor. We have to go behind to get information. So your colleagues at times are even bad from some stations that will not call the names from getting inside.
We're coming back to you. Senior barrister, let us look at avantage des membres du bureau et membres du bureau et the parliament, secrétaire 45 million CFA. We have also this is talking about, let me just see, that is let me read the document. It is le clément délité qui it is talking about monthly. There's a place there for monthly, and these are just allowance per sessions. Secretary, we have 45 million CFA francs. Kester, we have 50 million CFA francs. Vice President, we have 55 million CFA francs. Premier Vice-President, we have 60 million CFA francs. I'm sure then we have PAN, that President of the Assembly, we have 70 million CFA francs. Prime d'installation. On the prime d'installation, we have, that is a C. Prime d'installation, we have Secretary 20 million CFA francs, Questeur 28 million CFA francs, Vice-President 21 million CFA francs, Premier Vice-President 30 million CFA francs, President 40 million CFA francs. So if you add the 40 million to the 70 million the President received, that is 110 million. Now come now to this is in the Maître pour courage or something like that, or so. I did not pronounce it well because of my level of French. This one says Secretary 20 million CFA francs, Questeur 28 million CFA francs, Vice President 30 million CFA francs, Premier Vice President 35 million CFA francs, President 40 million CFA francs. So if you add this 40 million to the 110 million the President received, that is 150 million CFA francs. And so we are looking at these just tentatively. We have not looked about the issue of their vehicle. Okay, now if you look at what is written here, it says Président, Premier Vice-Président et Président ont bénéficié d'une voiture Toyota Prado neuf achetée sous le crédit de fonctionnement de un an.
That's the running capital of the assembly.
Yes.
Assembly alone.
Chaque membre du bureau a bénéficié de 15 millions de CFA francs en début de la législative pour son installation. That is 13 million.
Yes.
Excluding what we have read.
Just for them to take their office, 13 million francs. Now, you see, this is really outrageous because I don't see any justification behind all these monies that are being dished out, like Father Christmas will be giving to children. Now, the only reason you can imagine is that they are being paid to render lip service. Because if somebody earns 150,000 francs per session, you can now see the reason why he will behave like my friend Mr. Ndiwu was describing. Breach all COVID rules to come and make sure that he is elected. When it comes to the running of the assembly, whenever there is a bill, for the few times we have seen those things on TV, it is voting by acclamation, by clapping of hands. Because there is some will to render a service to the person who has been paying the bills. So I think this is a very good example of a parliament that should not exist. This type of parliament should be scrapped. If Reform Party is in power, we will start from the scratch. That is no parliament. That thing should be scrapped. Now, we're talking about the Senate here, and we said that the Senate has no place. Mr. Ndiwu talk of African democracy. I want to abide in that direction. Because if you look at Reform Party manifesto, we said the Senate is a Western copy and paste. We have our own norms in our society. Who are the citizens in Cameroon and in Africa as a whole who are most respected by the people? Is it the businessmen? Is it the university professors? Or is it the chiefs?
Chiefs.
Fine. So if you want a house that should be manned by the people who are the most respected people in the society, it should be a house of chiefs, not the Senate. So Reform Party thinks that in the place of a Senate, we should have a house of chiefs that will represent, that will bring together our big chiefs who will sit there and look at the affairs of the country, because no chief will lie on his bed and see his people being killed. No chief. The businessman is out to make money. He doesn't care whether you live or you die. I think très important. Businessman will not bother, but a chief will bother. So we think that it is better to have a House of Chiefs, which is African, than to have a Senate. So this, what we have there now as a Senate, as a Parliament, which is consuming our taxpayers' money for nothing. Because how can you imagine that you pay somebody, he is voted into office, you give him 13 million francs to install himself. What is he installing? How much does the table cost? How much do printers and computers cost? The previous man who was in that office, did you not use those things? Where are the ones, the equipment that were being used by those who occupied office before? Is it a new parliament? Are you building a parliament for the first time? What do you call free installation? Installation cost. What are you installing? Are you giving money to go and build his house or to go and renovate his house? It's nonsense.
13 million.
Okay, now we are talking only of these ones. I think that we saw some article on the house of the president of the Economic and Social Council. 2 billion. 2 billion, my brother. The president of Constitutional Council also had his own last time. 2 billion. How many bedrooms can somebody occupy? No, truly. Let us face facts. Mr. Javis, you are in your house. How many parlors can you occupy? How much does a parlor that will make you comfortable cost? Do you need even 500 million?
It depends on what you want as taste. I can go for 3 billion.
Oh my God, we're in trouble. 2 billion for one man's house. What is that? No, the whole regime has to be packed, have to be swept away and replaced by people who have a conscience.
But what would they be doing with 2 billion to be here?
Ask these people. I'm telling you, I say it's crazy. It's crazy. We are here crying that there is no money. They're taxing people. Our own people you elect to go to president, you say no, the taxes are small. Add. And what are they doing with the money? Building a house for one man. 2 billion francs. And that's not the first case. That's the third or fourth case. No, this is nonsense. We think that this will have given the Cameroonian people a clear reason why it is only a man who should be considered a madman who should want to maintain this regime in place. Everybody should, on election day, whether it is council election or parliamentary election or presidential election, please come back. Let us come back to our senses and cast our vote in favor of people who still have something up in the heads. You cannot be wasting our money this way. If you imagine that Cameroon gave a loan to China,
and Senior Barrister,
today we are begging China for money.
If we add all these figures, we are talking about, let me take from the basic of the secretaries. The secretary have 45 million. That is for the crédit d'acheter du véhicule. Achat du véhicule. That is 45 million. Now, you come now to crédit d'antenne du véhicule.
No, wait. That one is a loan, no? That's a loan.
Yes. Now, you add all this.
No, it's a loan. If they say credit a loan. So if they give him 45 million to buy a vehicle, it's a loan.
But this probably are not loan.
Which makes it even worse.
No, it's a loan. Yes. He has to reimburse. The question is there a mechanism for reimbursement? That is what should interest us.
Yeah, no, but here it's written. Yes, written. Avantage du membre du bureau et assimilé.
Assimilé. Yes. Assimilé. Yes, they have a vehicle loan, which is what I was talking about. If he is giving a loan to buy a vehicle, it's something good. But
what guarantees the reimbursement?
Is that loan reimbursable?
Because if you go to B, that's A. Now B is talking about prime d'installation, which also stipulate amounts given. C is talking about crédit d'antenne. Then D is talking about that's indemnity. That's indemnité pour congé for leave. So would they also take a loan?
Leave allowance.
Yes, that is leave allowance section. It is 20 million. Leave allowance for the caster is 28 million.
Excuse me, sir.
Vice President, leave allowance is 30 million. First Vice President, leave allowance is 35 million. Senior Barrister.
That's theft.
President, of the National Assembly, his leave allowance is 40 million CFA. Now, if you add 20 plus 20, 48, 20 plus 28, 48, 40 plus 70, that plus 30, that is 78 million. 78 million plus 35 million, that is 110 million. No, it should be 130 million plus 40 million, that's 160 million for leave allowances of the members of the House of Assembly. Now,
the members of the bureau.
Members of the bureau. Now, let's go now to the non-bureau members and add to those of the Senate per session, per leave.
Per session.
Yes. Is this what your party?
No, sir.
To be able to
now, when you say leave allowance, let us go now to the wages, to the labor law. Somebody is going on leave, you give him allowance for the. So it should not be above your monthly salary, no, sir. If you give somebody 20 million for leave allowance, is the salary 20 million? What is that? What is the legal basis of that one? The law that they signed, that they got the president to sign? No, this is horrendous. I think that these people, they are out just to milk the state, take as much as they can. This is, I mean, they are taking the money legally. They are up there, whatever they vote, they send to the president, and it is signed into law. Then they take the money free of charge. Now you cannot even complain because they tell you that there's a law that authorizes that. You see, so I am saying again that this whole thing has to be scrapped. We shall start afresh with a constitution, because when you look at the dispensation that we have today, you have a scanty constitution supported by a mountain of decree application decrees, many of which come about 30 years after the laws are signed.
For the degree of application for the declaration of assets.
Article 66.
Article 66.
You see,
still waiting for the text of application.
so that one, those are things that
you people now come back to us. Say when a manager manages poor, those he's managing with benefit from the fruits of bad management.
So you see, look, these are the things that permit siphoning of funds. Yeah, these are the things. So you have to come up with a constitution that defines everything. When you look at West Cameroon constitution, it gives you, it's in chapters. And each chapter deals with a particular issue. There is no such thing as decree application. You take the constitution, you read it, you come out with exactly what you want to put in place as a law. So you will cite the constitution and say, cap this of this constitution, section this one, article this, and you are right there. There's no such thing as awaiting some other text that will come and tell you how it has to be applied. So we have to revamp this thing, come up with new norms that will fashion the way a parliament should run. You can see that the opposition has no status in the parliament, nothing. Even the bills, the proposal of bills, the bills can only come from either the government bench or from the party in power.
Private member bills have never gone through.
There is just some cloudy thing there on private members bills. No, I think one has gone through. There's I think one must have gone through.
So that was SDF bill.
Yes, there is one that went through.
Yes, of SDF
SDF went through. But you cannot have a parliament run that way. You cannot have it. So you have to give some respect to the opposition.
Now, Emmanuel, let me come back to you. We are looking at, let's also now take it down now to the level of the ministers, the allowances. Look at the allowances of the ministers. Look at the allowances of the director generals of the defense society. Now, if we put all these allowances together and looking at what it is now, and you hear a member of parliament say that Cameroonians are not being taxed enough, and asking the name of the minister of of finance and the meaning of the name of the minister, say in his village it means something like this, courage or something like that.
Yeah, courage. Yes,
that yes. So therefore the minister should
even translating the name,
and then Mr. Minister will want much and more
yes,
taxes,
hard taxes
on Cameroonian, because 40% of other nations, the West, their GDP comes from taxes. Yes. And I want to ask you this question: if 40% of their GDP comes from taxes, are we in that same climate where we should tax Cameroonians that way?
No, what he failed to understand is he would have been telling the minister also at that time that in these 40% of the Western countries where their GDP comes from taxes, they use these taxes to build good roads. They use these taxes to build good hospitals. They use these taxes to build good schools, and they use these taxes to make sure that the state institutions are well structured and are managed. They use these taxes to make sure that the judiciary system of such nations are well paid, are independent, because one of the causes of corruption in the judicial sector is for the fact that the miserable salaries have reduced them to beggars. And that is why when you say the Constitution of Cameroon says litigants are not supposed to pay state magistrates. But in Cameroon, it's supposed to be the contrary, because when you see the living standard is not compared to those from those countries that you were naming. That said, I think that man needs prayers. That parliamentarian needs prayers. You know, we can be blaming him, whereas he was controlled by some invisible spirits and we are not aware. Because so a normal person cannot stand and vomit such trash. Coming from Ndian Omundemba, as they say it, one of the most enclaved areas of my country, no root. As I have a friend who was pregnant and almost gave birth on the road because it took them 2 days to be able to access Mundemba. These are things that are verifiable. And then somebody lives on that part of the country and goes as far as, I said, translating the name of the minister, that your name in my dialect means courage. And courage should mean that take this courage and tax Cameroonians higher. This one is telling Cameroonians that the parliament does not control government action. The government controls parliamentary action. Because if you are telling the minister who is supposed to render account to the parliamentarians, who are supposed to be audited, they have to pass in front of the parliamentarians to table what have been put as bills in their different ministries. If you are the one telling the minister that no, tax us higher, you are indirectly telling Cameroonians that you people are just there as hand clappers and rendering lip services to Cameroonians. You are gradually, and in simple terms, you are telling Cameroonians that we are not here to represent. He has even forgotten his own family, because there is no way you will tell me that all his family has been exported from his village to east of the Mongo. There is no way you will tell me that there is no poor person in his family where he comes from. There is no way you will tell me, if he's telling that to the Minister of Finance, he will not have the courage to tell the Minister of Transport that there is of Public Works that there is no route going to my place. He will not have any courage to tell the Minister of Public Works that, look, the bills yes, you can imagine all of this. That is somebody who should be driven out of Parliament. His immunity should be stripped off and he should be sent out of that Parliament. He's even painting a bad image of the Cameroonian Parliament. He's not only painting a bad image, he's painting more bad image of the CBN that has vowed never to see a successful Cameroon. It is through such people.
When you say as vowed, CPJ,
I said they have vowed through their actions.
They are trying their
actions are speaking louder than words. Their actions are vowed.
Member of the panel to actually speak on.
But we are ruled by CBDM. We have the right to talk about CBDM anytime.
No,
we're in the CBDM regime.
They have not vowed now.
But you cannot tell me that parliamentarian who was talking is a CBDM parliamentarian. I say it's a CBDM parliamentarian. Take your antenna after this program to Ndian. Find out who is represented at the parliament.
But
I say senior parliamentarian.
not vowed that Cameroon is not.
Let me continue.
Yes,
I am saying that
the opinion.
this kind of utterances coming from a parliamentarian has given a bad image of Cameroon. In fact, if the image was already bad, it has added value to the already existing bad image of the Cameroonian National Assembly, which has proven once again that the figures when I was leaving my house, I had some peace. After listening to the kind of figures you read there, I say I'm restless. I am peaceless. Because you cannot understand.
You are going on leave.
Somebody is going on leave. Somebody is going on leave. They pay him 20 million. Teachers are dying after being recruited and have taught for 10 years without salary in the same country. They are in classroom every day.
How much are they being on?
Sikam. Workers of Sikam have been
on strike. They have been for 5 months. No, 7 months. 7 months without salary. Nobody is speaking. The teachers are going through hell because the SJOD has vowed that they will not have peace. That you are absent at your duty post after being kidnapped by Abbas. You need to justify. That you are not there, your salary is simply cut. But we see people who are doing their businesses around, they have just about 1 month, that's 30 days maximum, to be in the National Assembly, and such money is disbursed to them. And then who said Cameroon has not been forgotten by God?
We're coming back to you. Let me take on this message. This one says, good morning and happy Sunday, Javis. My regard to your panelists in the house. All these debts countries are owing, does it mean all their natural resources and their public establishment couldn't be enough to run the affairs of their countries? What is all the borrowing for? When the countries are seriously having economic meltdown, they should stop borrowing. Let's start to build system on how to manage our nations ourselves. This one is coming from an anonymous sender. Senior barrister, let me come back to you. Your party is aspiring for election, and when we look at the plethora of issues, the cost of governance, let's take the ministers, the allowances of the ministers. Let's come now to the allowances of the independent consulators in the northwest and the southwest region. Not to talk about the president of the regional assembly and the members of bureau. Not to also talk about the fact that we are looking at also the National Bilingualism and Multiculturalism Commission. Not to also talk about the Cameroon's the system that regulates the press. We are talking about the National Communication Council. When you look at all those, also the economic and social council, and we have also looked at the issue. How is Reform Party going to manage all this now with these issues that we have listed?
Thank you, Mr. Javis. If you look at the way our country is set up administratively, you will cry, because there is no reason why you should have a governor and a regional president.
You have a DO.
You have a DO and a mayor doing the same thing. Multiply that by the number of councils around the country. You have the police, you have the gendarmerie doing the same thing. The only difference is that they'll tell that the gendarmes are in charge of military, judicial, police.
And you now have council police, eh?
You see, I say this country has to be scrapped. It has to be scrapped, and we have to start from the scratch, rebuild it. All this duplication of functions is for what? How much money are we spending to maintain these officers alive? People who are doing the same thing and earning huge sums of money for doing the same thing. Then we cry that there is no money. So that is the reason why you see Reform Party just said, well, we don't need 70 ministers. We need 9 ministers. If we have to maintain this present structure, we shall need 9 ministers, 1 prime minister. That makes 10. Each region giving a minister. And we don't need ministries. We shall put up a system where all the ministers will be a team in government at the presidency. and each minister will be represented at the governor, at the regional level, and at the council level, at the village level, by a department that corresponds to that minister. So that way, you have administration being taken right down to the people, and then you don't have many people doing the same thing. Many people not do the same thing. You save a lot of money. You will not ask me that in that type of setup, what is the salary of the governor? Where is the salary of the regional president?
Because you said for a while that the reason why the federal system, you experience the federal system. And you are experiencing this system. You also experience the centralized, and now what we are now captioning the accelerated decentralization, which means that you have witnessed 3 systems. You have witnessed the federal system, you have witnessed the centralized system, and now you are witnessing the accelerated decentralization system. Now, of all these, you quoted one key thing, that the reason for the abolition of the federal system was based on the cumbersomeness in managing in terms of finance. Now, let's take the Southwest region, for example. Senior Barrister, and tell me how Reform Party is going to amend this. From the Southwest, or any other region, we have the Regional Assembly. We have also the governor. We have the representative of the different ministries of Cameroon. The different ministries. We have the sub-regional delegates of all the different ministries in Southwest region and in other regions. The same with Douala. Divisional delegate. We have the senior divisional delegate. We have the divisional officer. Now look at the salary, the allowances of all these persons, the head of these institutions, right, with government vehicles and prados. And now, how is Reform Party going to solve this? At the level of the Regional Assembly, it is stipulated that the president of the Regional Assembly is the CEO of the region.
Thank you.
Which is the chief executive officer of the region.
Thank you.
What then is the governor doing?
Thank you. Let's go back to the constitution. Cameroon is a unitary, decentralized state. Its structures are the regions and the councils. Have you seen governor there? Have you seen governor there? Have you seen minister there? So these fellows have, I used to say it, they keep violating the constitution by putting in place structures that are not provided for in the constitution. So Reform Party will simply remove the governors, the appointed governors. We shall remove them. The regional president for now is somehow elected, but we are going to put a person who will be elected by direct universal suffrage, because there is no reason why you put somebody there who has to answer. We saw what happened here. Somebody has to come from Yaoundé with an envelope and say, open it, that is the president. Then you say it's elected. Elected how? So you have to set away what they call this prefectoral. Remove that prefectoral. It is a colonial system. We shall remove it completely. We don't need the SDOs and DOs. We don't need them. Let the country be run by the people who are authorized by the constitution, the mayors and the regional setup. Let them run the country. That is what our constitution provides. So if Reform Party is in power, know that it is that we are going to respect the constitution strictly. It will be the constitutional setup, the regional setup, made up of the regional council and the mayors that will run the country. In other countries, the police are controlled by the mayors. You go to London, it is the mayor who controls the police.
Yes.
So why cannot that not obtain here? So we are saying that we don't need a personal representative. The SDO is a personal representative of the head of state at the level of the division. Do we need that? Do we need somebody to represent the head of state personally? We don't need that.
Then at the subdivisional level,
we scrap all those things.
The divisional officer, chef care,
all of them, scrap everything. The DO is a duplicate of the mayor. We scrap him. That is why we said in our manifesto that we shall close ENAM, because there's no reason to have a school that will be training people who are not useful on the field. So we shall scrap ENAM, remove all those DOs, SDOs, and all assimilated people. Remove them all. Let the country be run by the mayors. who for the time being are being sidelined, because you have the national budget, only 15% of it is earmarked for the councils. You call it accelerated decentralization.
As we are told. We are told that it is not an accelerated decentralization.
It is not. It is actually deconcentration. That's what they're trying to do, is deconcentration, not decentralization, because the ministries remain there with all the powers. All the powers are concentrated around the ministries. So what they're trying to do is they take away some powers from the ministries and send down to the councils. So they're not decentralizing, they are deconcentrating. You see, there's a big difference between the two. So they are taking small powers from the ministries and sending down. That's the reason why at the level of Limbe, you will still see district delegation of this ministry.
Emmanuel, how you are a civil society advocate. When you look at the things I've listed, like the cost of governance here, we have the regional assembly, we have the president, the governor, we have the divisional officers. All the ministries have sub-divisional officers and divisional officers of their ministry. For example, in the southwest and in the northwest, in other part of Cameroon,
please, I'm not cutting you. Don't go too far to the regions. Let me just tell you that in Yaoundé, everything is being done possible to further fragment the ministries to add the number. I'll just give you an example. When Mr. Paul Atanganji was coming into Minat, it was called Ministry of Territorial Administration and the Decentralization. Today, you know that you have a Ministry of Decentralization now.
Which was being managed by a single person.
Where, let me tell you, before the Ministry of National Education, when I was still a kid, as a child, was fragmented to different ministries, to about 5. It was 1. And by every logical thinking, by every logical thinking, that is only serious, we should not be laughing. Our country is going down the drain. We need to pray for Cameroon. They said there is no prayer in politics.
Because education now we have higher education, secondary education, basic education, sports and physical education, scientific research. You are the one. Yeah. 5.
The 5. Which formerly the greatest brains of this country were trained at a period where we have only national
education. We came out from that system.
Yes.
We came from
a product of it. I put it well. The greatest brains that we have in this country came out at a time when Cameroon
was vice minister of
had just one minister of Ministry of National Education. I will just corroborate to you that don't label your energy going so much into the regional level. Let's just end at the level, the national level, which is Yaoundé. Why was the Ministry of this, Minat, why was it fragmented to Minister of Territorial Administration and Decentralization? And we have 2 ministers manning this ministry now.
And a double effect of
the cost of running
employees of this ministry.
Yes.
Rent.
The cost of
renting buildings.
Yeah, renting buildings. You see, like in education, now when you are going down now to the level of the region, the regional district of education division, you see that the cost has become more cumbersome than it used to be when this ministry was managed as the Ministry of National Education. That is to tell you that Cameroon, if not the richest in Africa, should be one of the richest countries in Africa. What we simply lack is the will to use our riches in favor of the development of our country and for the well-being of our citizens. And this can only be corrected if patriots take up or put up the armor of thinking and say, no, enough is enough.
Also, to what you have said, if you look at, also we have the Ministry of Employment and Vocational
Training.
And we also have the Ministry of Youth Affairs. We have the Ministry of of employment and vocational training, and now we come and have the Minister of Youth Affairs and Civic Education.
And civic
so that add now to that education, which is now seven.
So you see, Tah Mai, I am now addressing Cameroonians of good faith and goodwill. I once said here, growing up, seeing only the picture of President Paul Biya made me a happy young man when I was growing up. He has given his best to Cameroonians. I want to think that we might have criticized him for his failures or that he has not lived up to expectation. But we must thank him to have been there, and that it is time for him to step behind. The president of Reform Party is here. Other opposition parties are there. Young, vibrant men are there. He came in as a youth. If he goes out today and gives the opportunity for other youth to come in, we can use his advice if he becomes advisory. Because even going out, he will know that this is where I fought at. He himself once said it. The plans he had for Cameroon has been thwarted by the people he trusted the most. I think I'm not out of context. And that is why he brought in Kona. And he said, no. I want to think sometimes after bashing and telling them that I've been failing Cameroon, we also need to say that Cameroonians need to pray. The head of state need to take a deserved rest now. While even apologizing to Cameroonians that his dreams that he fashioned for the nation has not been able. We have seen he has taken some steps. We have a whole government in Konengi, which means that the president, knows that he had some people who were there to thwart his dreams for Cameroon, which should be applauded. But there are more who are still working free. We are talking about the COVID can. They can't get that the head of state, even though we are saying that he should take a rest, he should not take a rest without these people rendering account where the money went to.
Okay.
The Olembe that has not been inaugurated till date. We need to have, it is our money. We are paid for that. Before he takes his deserved rest, these people must answer account.
Okay, Senior Barrister, we are physically out of time. I want you to just briefly tell us what probably could be the way forward of this high cost of governance in Cameroon, and maybe addressing would-be voters.
Well, you see, we have to bring sanity into the management of public affairs in Cameroon. You cannot have many people doing the same thing. See, that's the reason why we advocate scrapping this entire colonial edifice that we have in place and replacing it with something that is easy to run and very cheap, like what Reform Party is proposing. See, we don't, if you compare what we are proposing to what is in place, you see the difference about 1/10. Reform Party will spend about 1/10 of the money these people are spending to run Cameroon, because they are lavishing our money on useless things. One aspect of one societal ill is being cured by five agencies. That is not possible. That gives room to corruption, gives room to a lot of vague on accountability. Because if you have many people doing the same thing, who is responsible? Who will account for who? Look at public edifices. There's nobody guarding them. Look at the bridge. They have not even inaugurated this bridge, this Vuri bridge. But go there and go and look at it. They have already vandalized the lights, the lights of the bridge, because there is nobody guarding the bridge. There are people inside guarding the old one. I don't know how these people reason. You go there, see soldiers on the old bridge. They say they are trying to prevent people from bombing the new one. Why don't you guard the new bridge as well, so that vandals will stop removing the bulbs and cutting electric cables? So you see, we think that this colonial edifice in place has to be removed. Let us try our hand at our own African style democracy. We should not copy everything from the white man. we don't intend to copy. So if you are going in for Reform Party, as we are inviting you, then know that you are going in for something new, something that will put you at ease. We want governance at the lowest cost. We don't want this system where you say Cameroon has a budget of 6,000 billion. There is no kobo in the coffers. You should have the money in your coffer before you start making budget.
Okay.
Have that money there. You cannot budget what you don't have.
Senior Barrister, when are we going to have the meeting of the High Judicial Council?
Well, Mr. B alone can give you the answer. He is the person who has the pen.
Because I believe it's for a long time now. Eh?
He is the one who has the pen. But I believe that since the Minister of Justice said there are about 800 petitions against magistrates, which they intend to examine in the Higher Judicial Council, it means that the council is not very far. We are just praying because this is a very sad situation. We have 3 badges of Enam that are awaiting postings. 3 badges. If you go to the Court of Appeals, it's a sorry situation. Some of the magistrates are so old that they have difficulty climbing the steps. Climbing the stairs. It's horrible. Go to Supreme Court. No, you need this council to come, to be organized, so that those who have rendered enormous services to the nation should go and rest, and younger people should take the place and continue serving the nation.
Thank you very much, Senior Barrister. Thank you, Emmanuel, for coming.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Of course, the President, National President of Reform Party, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Tah Mai Javis. I want to call on Cameroonians to take advantage of the few days that are left to register massively in the electoral register and make sure that come election day, you vote the person of your choice. Please, those of the Anglophone extraction, don't be intimidated by any person who tells you that they don't want elections, because without elections you will be managed by people you don't know. Choose your people during the elections, and that is the only way you can have control on the resources of your country.
And of course, we want to say happy Sunday to you, Jizong Sadifo Lorraine, happy Sunday to you, Lorel. Jizon Sadifo Lorraine Dimples, happy Sunday, and may God continue to guide and protect you. Happy Sunday to you, Mr. Nyam Robert and Madam Juan from the United States of America. It's been a long while. Happy Sunday to you too, and those of you who took out your time to watch us. Big Benji at the production. Happy Sunday to you. Thank you very much. And this program will be rebroadcast today at exactly 10:30 p.m. 10:30 p.m. you have a rebroadcast. And next week, Sunday, we intend to look at Article 66. When are we going to have the text of application? The person who is to sign the text of application, is he working on foot? We are talking about accelerated decentralization. When are we going to have the text of application? If you want to join us, you can contact me on the number 676-431-384. 676-431-384. I will include you on my panelists, and where we have our group where we always discuss topics, and if it's of interest, you can participate there. Remember, the rendezvous for next week is Article 66. When are we going to have the text of application? My name is Tah Mai Javis on Cameroon's commercial capital, Feng Gudron Banga. Until we meet again, no matter the matter, what matters is your matter. And what should matter for you is that go and register before the voters registration closes. Bye-bye from this end, and stay safe. Bye-bye.